I wanted to hop on here today and give you a reading update, a life update, talk a bit about the reading goals that I've met so far this year, and generally just get my feedback under me. I have a lot of videos that I want to make, and once I get out of the routine of making videos, it can sometimes be a while before I get back to it, if you haven't noticed. If you're new here, if this is the first time you're seeing me, or if you subscribed recently, hello, I'm Sam Cody, and I use they, them pronouns, and this is my booktube channel. At the beginning of the year, I wanted to make reading goals that weren't numerical. I wanted something that was a bit more aligned with what I want to get out of reading this year, rather than making goals that are just a number to reach. And I've done number goals in the past. They've worked for me in some ways. They've not worked for me in other ways. So I really wanted to try something different and see kind of what other forms reading goals could look like. One thing I just really don't like about reading goals is feeling like I'm locked into a set of standards. I feel like there's a restrictive feeling to them, and I want to kind of undo that. I wanted a different approach. So what I ended up doing was, actually, I went ahead and I made a bingo card, and you'll see I do have some filled in now. We are, I think, 60% through the year? 60 or 70? Not 70 yet. We're like 60% through the year. And so this is kind of reflective of what I've been able to accomplish with this new approach. And I wanted to kind of show you what's going on. Some of these goals are like absolutely massive, and some are ridiculously simple and easy. I really wanted to mix there so that I could kind of pick and choose what I wanted to tackle at any given time, have some variety to sort of keep me interested and see what I gravitated towards, you know? Right up here, we had read a graphic novel. Last year, I read a bunch of graphic novels, and I absolutely loved it. I found that they were really good for getting me out of reading slumps. I love art, and seeing kind of a visual representation of a story in that way was really cool to me. And so I wanted to continue that further. So I accomplished that. I read Are You Listening by Tilly Walden, which was really good. I don't think I liked it quite as much as On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden, but like that one is so hard to top. That was one of my favorite books of last year. But yeah, Are You Listening was awesome, and I was able to fulfill this goal. I also wanted to continue the Singing Hills cycle. I read the first book, The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo, back in November of 2023. I honestly didn't have super high expectations for me, but it blew my mind. It was like such a small book that accomplished so much. Its use of, perspective, like the POV it was told from, was one that I don't see often used in fantasy. It was from the perspective of a servant of the Empress, who's now an old lady, kind of reflecting on her life with this important figure. Really unique and super short. All the books in this series are really short and technically can be read in any order. So definitely check that out if that sounds interesting to you. Pretty light on the fantasy aspects. That's not a main focus, but they do come up, and it is intriguing when we do get peeks into the fantastical here. I also tried out Nnedi Okorafor for the first time. I read Bendy. It's an 80-page book, and I ended up reading it in a day. Okay, there's some things that I loved about it, some things that I didn't love about it. I was really impressed by the way that Okorafor was able to very, very quickly create a world that I felt a part of, that I understood to some extent. And that's something that's like really sort of tricky to do in sci-fi and fantasy. I feel like I'm so accustomed to info dumps that sometimes I like them. She made it look effortless. She gives us hints of the social dynamic, solid background on the geopolitical stuff that's happening in space. And we follow a protagonist that's, she's rebellious, but also curious and intellectual, like really multifaceted. And I'm going to continue the series. I think that the ending of this one felt a little rushed. So I'm curious to see if my concerns from the ending are addressed in later books. I'm avoiding spoilers, so I won't say what those are. But I'm curious to see if those things will come up again and how they'll be handled. So this one is kind of a combination square with the two books I have left in the Earthsea cycle. So The Farthest Shore and Tehanu. So I did The Farthest Shore, and as I expected, I really liked it. I didn't like it quite as much as The Tombs of Atuan. I think The Tombs of Atuan had such a palpable atmosphere and characters that I got a bit more attached to. But The Farthest Shore was still absolutely beautiful in concept and execution. exactly what I expect from Le Guin every time. While her books are concise, they make me slow down and remember to appreciate the act of reading and the perspective changes that I can have when I read. I also read The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, continuing on the Wheel of Time. This one took me a while, but I think I liked it better than The Eye of the World. I feel like Robert Jordan had more of a grasp of writing a novel that long. And while there were some things that I didn't like as much about it, I was anticipating the climax more. I was enraged at some of the stuff that was happening to the characters. If you know, you know. Really great, and made me want to see where this goes in The Dragon Reborn, because I've heard that he just keeps getting better up to a point, but he keeps getting better in the first few books. I was afraid it would start to lose me, but I am really excited to read the next Wheel of Time book now. I also have read a nonfiction book on here. I've read a couple so far. I just reread Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I think is the only self-help book that I love. And reading it a second time was almost better than reading it the first time, because I think I needed some of the strategies and ideas that it talks about more now than I did the first time I read it. Something I hadn't done before, but you should consider revisiting nonfiction that you like. It's going to have different relevance depending on when you read it, and you might get different lessons out of it. I also read The Year I Met My Brain by Matilda Bosley. This one is about, it's a combination of nonfiction and memoir, you know what I mean, where she's just discussing the experience of being diagnosed with ADHD as someone well into her adulthood. So that was a really cool perspective to read. I learned a lot about ADHD that I didn't know before, the history of research around it developing, the sort of underdiagnosis, even if it seems sometimes like it's overdiagnosed, sort of strategies and treatments that are available and that work for some people and don't work for others, and how all the dynamics with that. Fascinating stuff that I wish I knew sooner about ADHD. So in case you're wondering, she's a big proponent of don't self-diagnose based on a book you read. If you think you should get tested by a professional. I think that goes without saying, but I'm saying it. Really cool to get informed on the subject, to validate some thoughts and feelings that I've had in the past, and really great book for getting a more well-rounded perspective on the subject. I don't know if you can hear that horn. Then the free space is just exist, because that goes without saying. All I have to do this year, even if I don't read anything, all I have to do is exist. Okay, that's all. See ya.